Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to Visa SME Sustainability Research Brief. We are very excited to have you with us and to walk you through some of the findings that we found talking to small businesses across Europe. Here with me, I have Matthias Fekete from KAE Consultancy. Hello.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
And also Stephen King, VP of Sustainable Solutions.
Great, thank you. Look forward to the session.
Perfect, great. Let's maybe just wait for 1 minute so everyone joins, and then we will kick off. But in the meantime, I would just like to go through some of the housekeeping things. So just to make everyone aware that this research brief is confidential for your information only, and you should not use it for further distribution. I would also like just to make you aware that we are recording this session, and you will be able to access the recording for 1 month after. We would also welcome you to post any kind of questions if you have during the session. You can post it anytime. We will try to answer them as we go along, but also at the end we will have the Q&A session for all the questions remaining. If you have any technical issues, please also use the Q&A section. If you don't hear us or see the presentation or see us, please do get in touch as well. Perfect. So let's just kick off. So I already introduced my colleagues, but just to stress again, the purpose of today is really to help you gain the understanding of what sustainability means to small businesses, and also how we can support them on their sustainability journey. In terms of the agenda, we plan to spend 40 minutes together. First, we want to share with you some of the insights around the attitudes, needs and barriers of small businesses when it comes to sustainability. Then we want to walk you through to some of the potential solutions, and at the end also spend some time on the Q&A. So why is sustainability relevant for small businesses? First of all, we all know that UK and Europe have set up ambitious targets to become net zero by 2050. And just because there are so many small businesses, we definitely can't neglect this segment if we want to hit those targets. Small businesses represent more than 90% of all businesses. They are crucial for communities. They are embedded in our communities, and they are aware of the role that they are playing. Small businesses are also under a lot of pressure from customers, both consumers and also business customers, from their employees. Especially younger generations are becoming more and more aware of the environmental problems, and also investors. If we now look more closely at what is Visa doing, and also why Visa actually wants to go beyond four walls. So Visa is doing a lot to become more sustainable as a business, but we are definitely putting a lot of emphasis to support our customers, and small businesses are an important segment. Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lenka. Yeah, wonderful to be here today talking about small business. Oftentimes, small businesses are the enablers and the innovators that actually take us to new economies, and that's definitely the case in sustainability. And so being able to support those SMEs, whether they're in your portfolio or you work directly with them, are the canary, so to speak, in terms of where the innovation is going to be coming from. And we need to find it easier and easier for them to grow and scale, either by helping to keep their costs down, helping them to minimize some of the hurdles that they face in growing their business and focusing on what they're doing. As a company overall, as Alenka mentioned, Visa has a long history of doing a lot of stuff within its own four walls, getting our own house in order, as the expression goes. And recently as this January, we're now focusing on delivering solutions, tools, services to our clients so that they can enable their customers and clients on their sustainability journey. So those are some of our interest in this area and a more broader area. How are we doing that? As I mentioned, tools and services, products that we're building within our own I guess our house, our own capabilities, but leveraging very much so our data, all the information we're seeing, whether it's on EV charging, or whether it's on the type of spend that's happening. All of those are insights and valuable ways in order for SMEs to be able to target and attract the sustainable shopper and the people that are starting to shift habits. It isn't so much that consumers aren't able to find or aren't willing to shop more sustainably. It's how can they get access and ability to find them. And that really is how we're hoping, not only through these seminars, but in other ways, to support that narrative shifting in order for more sustainable choices to be available. And we leverage a lot of our wider ecosystem in order for that to happen. So our partnerships that we're forming already and that we seek to form into the future becomes the baseline or the foundation in order for us to be able to do more with all of our clients, particularly in the SME space. And the beginning part of that, to really understand where to build, where to partner, and where to do, started with this research that Alenka will tell you a little bit more about.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, exactly. So I think in order to provide services that are relevant for this specific segment, for small businesses, it's really important that we understand these small businesses, where they are, their day-to-day problems. Small businesses are very specific. Unfortunately, a lot of times they are either put in the consumer bucket or on the large business bucket. So really to understand the drivers and the attitudes to sustainability, we partnered with KAE and we spoke with quite a few businesses across Europe to really understand where they are on the journey and what would be the best way to support them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Alenka. So the way all these insights came about really is through in-depth interviews with sustainability-focused businesses. So we spoke to, as you can see on the left, 3 different segments: micro, small, and medium, defined by their number of employees. We also made sure that we cover all of the main sectors of the economy. So we included retail businesses, service-oriented businesses, as well as hospitality companies. And then also you can see on this map where these businesses are coming from. So it's 6 markets, namely the UK, France, Italy, Germany, Poland, and Sweden. So all of that you're going to hear in terms of the insights from the SME side is coming from the SME segment from these markets.
And let's then just start with the average awareness and sentiment. You mentioned that the businesses that you interviewed are somehow interested in sustainability. Is there anything that is a common theme that we can highlight?
Absolutely. So we focused on speaking to sustainability-focused businesses because we thought that they will give us the insights that we need, because they're the ones, the early movers, who are already active in this space, right? So what they're telling us is that they are very well aware of the importance of sustainability. So they all clearly see that this is something they have to get involved in. And they're already doing actually quite a few things. So we'll show some initiatives on later slides where you'll see some examples of what's already being done, but there's a clear desire from them to do more. So they really, pretty much all of them that we spoke to, they see this as an opportunity rather than a risk. So they want to do more. And one of the main reasons why it's not happening is the lack of actionable information. And we'll talk about that later on. So to sum up, there's already a lot happening, but there's a clear desire from them to do more as well.
Okay. And what's basically the most common activities that small businesses do? Absolutely.
So from all the activities we found, we grouped them into 6 categories. So you can see the first 3 on this slide, and these are the ones where there's really a lot of traction. So almost every business we spoke to is doing something in at least 1 or 2 of these areas. So the first one is energy and raw materials, where really there's two trends. One is to reduce the amount of energy and raw materials that is consumed in the regular processes in production. And the other trend is to move from less sustainable to more sustainable sources, both in terms of energy and also raw materials. It's a very, very common theme in all the markets, really. Then the second big area is volunteering and charities. So interestingly, in most markets, it's more the charity donations that seems to be common. So businesses are happy to donate part of their profit to a good cause, especially interestingly, local communities rather than international organizations. And then only in Poland, from all these countries, we saw that it's more the volunteering rather than the donation that's very common. So Polish businesses seem to get involved directly in helping rather than say just donating money to charities. And then the third big area is waste, and it's basically table stakes. It's very common across all the small businesses we spoke to either work on reducing their waste or recycling the necessary waste that they have to produce during their production. It's also related to regulation. There are some markets where there's either a government requirement or an incentive to reduce waste or to recycle waste. So there's really a lot of activity there as well. And then the other three categories where we did see some activity are the ones that you can see on this slide. And I think it's important to mention that these are still relatively niche. So we are far from being able to say that all these businesses that we spoke to do something about this, but they definitely want to do more versus what they're already doing. So the first one is about carbon footprint, right? So many SMEs we spoke to have a clear desire to understand their carbon footprint. They just don't really know how to even start. Most businesses that do something in this area already are larger businesses, especially in logistics, where there's obviously a big impact on the environment in terms of carbon footprint. So many logistics businesses already work in this area, but most of the other sectors don't really seem to be too engaged yet, but there's a desire. The second area is business travel, and I'm sure you're seeing this from your data as well, that business travel seems to be coming back to pre-COVID normal. Many businesses are now doing business travel as they used to before the pandemic. So there isn't too much activity there from a sustainability perspective. But in terms of commute to work type travel, there's really a lot of activity. So there's a lot of companies who have mobility schemes, cycle to work type schemes, or for example, they might subsidize train travel rather than driving into work. So it's more the commute type travel where there's a lot of activity. And then finally on sustainable production, it's probably the most interesting area, but it's still very niche in most markets. So this has to do with implementing sustainability policies in product development, in manufacturing, in packaging. So there's some activity here, but it's still relatively niche. But there's definitely a feeling from this research that it's increasingly a topic and again, an objective from businesses.
So it looks like businesses are doing a lot, but is this more like reactive? Or is it more, business has a holistic approach? They basically set up a strategy, what they're doing. What are we seeing?
I think it really depends, mainly on the size. So what we're seeing with especially micro and small businesses is that it's more reactive. The main reason why is that most of those businesses don't really have a preset strategy. So if there's an owner or a general manager who's really personally enthusiastic about sustainability, then they might translate that into the business. It's more reactive, it's more based on external factors, let's say. But then we also spoke to some larger businesses, especially those who have 100+ employees. Some of them have a very sophisticated strategy. They know what they want to do. They have medium, long-term plans. They have KPIs to deliver upon. So it really depends, I think, mainly on the size, to be honest.
Do you think, Stephen, that businesses are missing the opportunity because they are just reacting?
Yeah, certainly. I think it depends on the segment for sure, and I appreciate the size issue. When you're a larger business, you can plan for these things. You might have had it on your strategic roadmap or agenda, particularly if you're producing things, you would have been aware of this. I think it's important to stay ahead of that regulation and help your SMEs understand what's coming and what kind of tools to prepare for it. It might feel like quite a few years away, but some of the stuff, better to know now what you're going to do when it comes rather than to get it away from it. And then beyond size, as I said, around segment, there is a possibility just not only to save costs, I guess, and reporting, I think to differentiate. I think it's still an attractive option for quite a few, where that option is available to you. Can you get access to the consumers? I think being able to do this online makes this even more attractive to be able to seek those folks out based on the way that they're shopping already, or what they're buying. So it definitely feels like an opportunity. I'm biased, obviously, to get more supply side coming, but I think for those that are able to do and shift to do, this is not it's not an if, it's just a when now. And so seizing that opportunity, even in the recessions or cost of living, still great. People are still seeking to save money, maybe even more, and some of the sustainability and saving money do fit together. They're not opposites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's have a closer look to some of the drivers and barriers.
Absolutely. So if we start from the left, this customer demand, I think it's clear that it's increasingly important, and it's not just individual customers who might, increasingly see the importance of sustainability through. It's now in mainstream media. It's everywhere, really. So we all know that this is important. So that individual sort of perception might then translate into a customer demand, right? So that we're seeing for sure. But also actually in a B2B situation, there's many businesses who tell us, small businesses, that their larger international clients put these very specific requirements in RFPs. So, then it's a very tangible, requirement, and it's something they have to fulfill, otherwise they lose business. So customer demand, absolutely, it's very, very important. I already spoke about the second one, the personal conviction. So the key takeaway here is that it's really mainly for small and micro businesses where this is very important. Then the third one on here, business reputation, I think it has two aspects to it, right? So the first one is about the image of the business. So there's many businesses, many owners who, because of their own personal beliefs, they want to have a positive image, and being sustainable works quite well with being seen as a beneficial part of the local community, for example. So that's definitely an important aspect. But there's also a competitive aspect to this. So many businesses see this as an opportunity, right? So if you work in a very competitive sector, then this is one of the ways to sort of stand out if you're sustainable. So reputation, absolutely crucial. Then the next one is interesting because the long-term reduction of cost is obviously, like Stephen was mentioning, it's definitely, it might work very well hand in hand with being sustainable, and many businesses see this as well, especially the ones where they might not have that personal enthusiasm for sustainability, but they definitely see the financial aspects of it, right? So if they make an investment a few years down the line, financially, it really works out for them. So it's a key driver, I think, the financial aspect as well. And then finally, regulation. I think in terms of what's already out there, so what's already required, it's relatively limited so far for SMEs. It's mainly to do with waste, recycling and reduction. But many businesses tell us that they feel that this is coming, right? So there's probably going to be, and they know this, it's going to be more difficult to adhere to sustainability regulations. So some of them think ahead, and they want to be sort of ahead of the game a little bit and make sure that they abide by all the rules when those rules come by. So I think that those are the 5 main driving factors that we're seeing. And then on the other side of things, so the barriers, so these are some of the reasons why some of the initiatives have not yet happened. The first one, we spoke about this already, the lack of accessible information. And the information here is really, it's not about the amount of information or you know, it's not even about the accessibility. I think it's more about the information being relevant and actionable for them. So, you know, any one of us can now go online and read a lot about sustainability. But what these businesses are telling us is that if I want to improve my own business, how can I do that? So it just, you know, Googling or looking into the, you know, watching the news, you don't really get that. So that's one of the main problems. It's this lack of actionable, relevant information. The second one has to do with cost. So if you think about some of the, you know, more ambitious sustainability projects that these businesses might do. So for example, installing photovoltaic panels or swapping their car fleets to EVs, that's a big investment, right? So they need to find budget for it. They need to, if they don't have their own funds, they need to go to a bank and get a loan. So it's definitely still a barrier, I think, the financial aspect. The socio-economic impact is very important lately. I mean, you know, we've just been through a more or less 2-year pandemic, so it was really difficult for these businesses. Now we might be going into a recession, so all these things push sustainability slightly down the agenda right now, it feels like. So it's not like it disappears. It's not like businesses don't want to do this, but if they have something more urgent to address, for example, inflation, loss of revenue, then they might have to do that before they implement any more sustainability initiatives. And just in the interest of time, quickly on the last two topics here. So the customer demand, like we were saying, is definitely there, but there's also apparently a segment of customers who are not as happy to switch if there's an extra cost, for example, or if there's an inconvenience in terms of driving a bit further away to get a sustainable product. So there's still, you know, the demand is there, but there's definitely room for growth there as well. And then the last one here, the lack of sustainable options. This really has to do with the perception, at least from the businesses, is that there's a lot of products and services that they can't really procure when they're looking for more sustainable alternatives. It's easier, cheaper to buy something that is less sustainable. So there's still, you know, the supply side is also, it's not quite there in many industries, I think.
Yeah, definitely a lot of challenges. I think it's, like I said, on one side you have a lot of information that is available, but how is that information relevant? And then we have a question which maybe, you know, will lead to answer that. So it's small businesses rely to measure and track their footprint, but do they want to measure it, or they actually like tools to help them measure that? So it's a question, and I remember when I was doing the research, what tools are available for small businesses. There is not really a lot of tools designed especially for small businesses to help them track the carbon footprint. Is there, right? So we have on one side for large corporates that are regulated, you have very sophisticated sustainability accounting software available. For small businesses, it's very limited. So would we say that basically the reason why small businesses are not measuring and why they basically struggle to progress is because of the lack of the tools?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, the SME space, I think, is notoriously struggles by, as you mentioned in the beginning, getting caught between being consumer or being medium or large size business. I definitely think there's tools out there. Are they as easy to use in the sort of middle section or the in-between bit? They're probably not tailored for that, because also the opportunity is harder to understand from a business's standpoint. It does feel like the more that this is digitized and the more that this is a platform or cloud-based, the information that they're bringing into their business and their supply chain and the things that are going out of their business, the more opportunity there is for all of these APIs and all these feeds to be able to pull the data out. So I think we are, as businesses, as I said, become not only more digitized in their payments, but more digitized in their entire systems. I think they might be able to get access to both sides of the tool base, maybe a lot faster than we would have seen, you know, even 5 years ago, possibly. And so, yeah, is it reaching up a little bit or reaching over to consumer? It probably will be a mixture of both. And I think this research helps to point out where the friction points are and where we could develop stuff possibly together to provide solutions.
Absolutely. So Matthias, maybe just a follow-up. So is this something that came out in the research that's like, especially on the carbon footprint, the reason why that's a niche at the moment is because of the lack of the tools?
I think so. It's either the lack of tools or the lack of awareness about these tools. So we ask businesses, obviously, have you not looked for these tools? And they might have, but then with a simple Google search might not give you what you need, right? So I think if someone was to show them that here's a tool, this is how it works, and then you can really use it, and it's beneficial for you, then I think adoption would be there. So they're telling us they want to do this, but whether there are no tools in their markets or they're just not aware of them, that's a question really.
Good. So this actually brings us to another section that we want to discuss with you. So based on the needs, drivers, barriers, we came out with 10 propositions that we also tested with the small businesses just to get a feel and understanding of how beneficial or useful the small businesses would consider them. So like I mentioned, there were 10 propositions grouped together in the 3 categories. One is around the awareness, engagement, and payments. Yash, can you talk a little bit more about?
Absolutely. So we'll talk about each of these one by one, but just to give you an idea of what they do as a group, right? The first one, the awareness ones, are really about helping businesses assess their sustainability level and to help them progress and be better at sustainability. The second one, engagement, is about getting others involved. So whether it's employees, customers, any other stakeholder around the business, and basically working together to be more sustainable. And then the final one is basically using payments as a platform to, first of all, assess sustainability and also to reward sustainable action. So that's how we group them, the 10 tools together. So if we start with the first group, and if we start with the first solution actually on the left, the business carbon footprint dashboard. So this is basically a tool, and it leads us nicely to this solution. What we've been talking about is it basically gives the small business a holistic view of their carbon footprint. It does it based on its payment, supplier, and accounting data. And it also gives a business a green score, which is basically to assess their sustainability levels. So we obviously show this to many businesses, and we ask them, what do you think about this? Would you use this? So as you can see from this graph, on the appeal level, this is relatively high up. So this means that we receive largely positive feedback to this, especially from larger businesses who have a bigger footprint, bigger scale, bigger supply chain. So they really see a benefit of using this. There were a few key requirements from them that they would like to see in this tool. The first one is transparency. So they want to understand exactly how the footprint is calculated, and also how their green score, their sustainability level is calculated. So that's the first main thing. And the other main thing was credibility, right? So we obviously couldn't tell them that this would be a Visa solution. So we just told them this is a solution from someone. So what they were saying is that they would like to see a brand endorse this, someone who is seen as a sustainable company within their market or globally. So I think that endorsement is really important. So that's the first tool. Then if we move to the right, the second tool is what we call a sustainability marketplace, which is basically a platform offering sustainable products and services for businesses. So if I'm a small business, I can go on there, I can go online and look for products and services, sustainable alternatives that I might need for my business. And also the solution offers discounts on these products and services, obviously the sustainable options. And the feedback to this, as you can see, because it features slightly lower down, it shows sort of a mixed feedback. Large companies seem to really like this because they they have a larger need for procurement, obviously, so they see a bigger benefit in this. Some of the smaller ones had a question around, would this be relevant for me? I might just need one or two types of supplies for my business. Would I use this? So it's really a size question, I think. And then also the credibility is really important here as well, right? So because it's a sustainability marketplace, and we would be promoting sustainable businesses there will need to be a company that can endorse this and say this is actually truly sustainable. And then the third tool here is what we call tips on how to become more sustainable, and the definition is really in the name, so that's probably clear to understand. It's basically an information hub for SMEs to go and find information about how they can be more sustainable. So as you can see, this was very popular with businesses, but there's always a but, and that was about the relevance and the information being actionable. So they just want to see the information that they can use as a business. They're not really interested in wider trends or topics. They want to see what can I do as a business to be more sustainable. So overall, definitely very, very popular proposition.
Yeah, very interesting that businesses are actually quite aware that data and how the score is generated and the tips that are provided are so crucial, right? Was there any company that they mentioned? So you mentioned definitely a company that has very high sustainability credentials would be good to endorse. Any companies that maybe also specialize in small businesses, have they?
Not really. So I think this comes back to the lack of awareness here, right? So there's definitely an idea from them, but when it comes to specific companies, I don't believe anyone mentioned the likes of EcoVadis or B Corp or someone like that. So there seems to be this lack of awareness, but also what we could tell them is that these solutions might come from your bank, right? And they really like that. So it seems that banks are a trusted partner in general to small businesses, and they don't see a reason why they can be partners in the area of sustainability too, right? But when it comes to this endorsement, we couldn't really come to any specific names. It's more about someone that has a positive image in this space. Really, I think that's the desire from businesses.
Steven, do you see anyone who would play a role in this, or is it going to be a set of partnerships, right? I think sustainability is definitely everyone's responsibility.
Yeah, it's quite a large area too that we're talking about. So I think there's could it come from the accounting side because they have all your information? Could it come from providers that already provide either marketplace, royalty offers, and all of that area? I think this particular need for expertise on sustainability is important though as well, because what are you seeking? Does it have that backing? Does it have that depth of knowledge? Sustainability is an additional element like any expertise, maybe digital 15, 20 years ago. There's just certain people that have now spent decades, if not definitely the last 5 years, really understanding this area, and those I think are going to be the partners that you want to be with in order to accelerate your knowledge in the area.
Okay, great. So just to let you know, please post your questions in the Q&A. I can see some of them already coming up. I think maybe some of them are better to leave for the end or for the next session. But the other one is the engagement. So definitely engagement with employees, with stakeholders is important.
Yes.
Right? Small businesses already on the dashboard, they mentioned they like this perception or idea of a sustainability score that they could, potentially engage with their stakeholders with. Yeah.
I think so. So if you take it tool by tool, the sustainable spend tool is basically it's similar to the footprint dashboard that we mentioned, but it works on a transaction basis. So it shows you the footprint of each of your purchases made by card, right? And then it gives you a potential tip for a more sustainable alternative. So the idea, as you can see, it features really high up. It was very, very popular, this, and most businesses saw the dashboard and this sustainable spend tool working quite nicely together as well. So to conclude, really it was very, very popular across all segments actually and all markets. Then the next one, sustainable employees. It's basically it's an employee engagement scheme which helps the business get the staff involved in sustainable activity, right? So if you think about cycle to work schemes or local volunteering activity, so this is a tool that helps you do that with your wider employee base. You can see features slightly lower down. Again, it has to do with size. So obviously for a medium business with 100 employees, this might make sense. If you're a startup with 3 people, you might not need an employee engagement tool because you think you're too small really to do this. So from larger businesses, definitely positive feedback. From smaller ones, less so. And then the third one, the third tool here in engagement is sustainable business. It's a very straightforward tool which basically takes the green score from the carbon footprint dashboard, so your sustainability level, and shares it where you want to share it as a business. So it can be your website, it can be your social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and there's also a proposed sustainability hub where all of these businesses could have a sustainability profile and they could feature there as well. So again, as you can see, it's really high up on this graph. So really from all segments and markets, very positive feedback. Businesses seem to want to be transparent with this. So most businesses actually, even if their score is maybe not the best, they would be happy to feature this score on websites, on social media, because they think it's a motivational tool for them as well to improve if their score isn't as good as they would like it to be. So that's the second batch of tools.
And the last one is around payments. So of course,
yes,
Visa being a payment company, and we also saw on the engagement, it looks like that this kind of very simple, easy to understand connection between transactions. So I paid for this invoice, or I paid this supplier. This is how much it was a contribution to my overall carbon footprint. Is something businesses understand. Their perception is it's going to be easy to make actions to improve that.
I think so.
Yeah, but there are also some other things that payments can play here, right?
Yeah, I think there's some really innovative ideas in here. So if we start from the left again, the sustainable card program is basically a combination of first of all, producing physical cards from sustainable materials. And the second part to this is the adoption and promotion of virtual cards, right? So now, because there's 2 elements to this, there's obviously 2 types of feedback. So on the first one, in terms of producing cards from more sustainable materials, it's something that it's not just popular, it's something that businesses would like to have and have it now. So it's almost seen as table stakes. They would definitely want to go for that. On the virtual card side, it's an interesting situation, and I'm sure you see this from the other areas that you work in with small businesses, is that some of them already use it, both for personal and business use. They love it, they see the benefits, it makes perfect sense for them. But then there's also a segment of businesses who, probably mainly because of the lack of awareness, they don't really understand how this might work or why it's good for them. And there's also some concerns about control of spend and also security. And if you really understand virtual cards, you know that this is more of a lack of awareness type situation. So again, mostly positive feedback overall, but on the virtual cards, it's sort of a mixed situation. Then there's 2 other tools that maybe we can talk about together. Sustainable purchases is a rewards mechanism which basically rewards sustainable purchases by providing cashback or loyalty points or interest rate discounts. So as you can see, it features really high up. Basically, regardless of size and sector, businesses really like this. So if we then now move on to sustainable rewards, which is a follow-up to this, it's basically a redemption mechanism which allows them to use the points that they earn in the sustainable purchases tool for some sort of environmental cause. And you can see it also features pretty high up. So all the businesses really that were happy to receive points rather than cashback or other incentives are happy to spend those points within this sustainable rewards tool. Their requirements, though, is that they have a few options to choose from, right? So they don't really want to be told, this is the company that it goes towards. They want to have a few options, both local and also international ones. So I think it's important to cover both areas. And then finally, the last proposition here is sustainable receipts, which has two elements. The first part is about helping businesses go paperless with receipts. And the second part is featuring a sustainability score and also the carbon footprint of their products and services on the receipt, right? So it has both elements to it. The first one, going fully digital, is something that many businesses would like to do, but there are some concerns about what their customers might think about that. So going from paper to digital, so there are some concerns there, but overall, they would like to do it. And then the second part was very popular. So to feature your green score on a receipt, to show the carbon footprint on a receipt was really popular because again, it's seen as a marketing tool, right? So to show once you've invested all that money and effort into going sustainable, now you want to show it as well. And this is a way to do it.
Great. Perfect. Let's just quickly summarize and then let's go to questions.
Yes.
So ideal proposition. What we need to actually pay attention to if we want to create a proposition for a small business that is actually relevant, and which of these services would actually have the biggest impact, right? Because we have just cars made of sustainable materials versus carbon footprint dashboard, right? I think that there is definitely a difference in the impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult to answer this, right? An ideal proposition, but I think it's important that that any set of propositions includes things from each of these areas, because you can see in each of them there are some tools that feature really high up, and I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all proposition, to be honest. And it's not really, we didn't see too many major differences between markets. It wasn't that. It's more about the business profile. So am I, a medium business or actually micro and I'm a startup, for example, or which sector am I from, or why do I want to be sustainable? Is it a personal desire? Is it more of a market opportunity that I see, right? So I think it really depends on that.
Yeah, as you laid out the research, the getting awareness seems such a critical first step. Not only awareness of what you're doing, but how you fit as a business and in this case, where your carbon is coming from. So is it your buildings? Is it your employees? Is it your supply chain and all of those things? And then deciding where to act and understanding where those customer preferences are that could drive more business. This confluence of the values in which you want to be as a business and the commercial opportunity need to be synced up to make a move in this area and make it long term. It isn't a nice to have. It's about how do you drive a business opportunity with some of the shifts and moves you're making, because it can be expensive for the SME to do this, so they need to see the return. And having that lens to start with, I think, just puts a different approach possibly to where you're looking for not only where I'm exposed, regulation and all that, but also where's the opportunity for me to seek based on what I'm seeing in my competitive set or the other people that are acting that I could catch up to or surpass based on some of the moves in these areas that you guys have tested.
Great. So if we go now into the questions, so the first one is, we mentioned that some customers are not willing to switch to more sustainable products or more sustainable supplier service providers. They were asking if we can be maybe a little bit more specific, what markets, or is there any specific segment of consumers. We did a lot of research recently on the consumer side of the business as well, right?
Yeah, we definitely did. And so the question is, which ones do or don't switch?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. There's definitely some correlation on the consumer side, as you can imagine, with age. Your current affluence and the where you are in society and your preference for that. You almost have the Greta or the David Attenborough sort of caricature, probably, in terms of the way that you would approach things. And I would say that this is already this is something that is exhibited quite clearly through their patterns of behavior already. So this is, some of it's hidden, but there's quite a few seeking these opportunities, and they're asking questions and looking for the options. So whether that's tracing their history to you through social media and that journey, but I think people are exposing this quite easily for people to see, and those would be the first, I think, the opportunity, at least from how a small business could increase their business by meeting the demand. I think they're quite easy to find in terms of what the actions they're displaying, their other buying behaviors, charitable donations to certain types of merchant behavior already that they're doing. Yeah.
And then, so the second question is around how does Visa support small businesses to combat these current challenges?
Yeah, certainly. You get to answer a question too, don't you?
Exactly. I do. Yeah. So definitely we are doing quite a lot of things, especially with partnerships. So we are looking at how we could support small businesses. So at the beginning, Stephen already mentioned some of the activities that we're doing around data. So how can we utilize our data to help small businesses track, so calculate and track their carbon footprint. We're working with different partners to add data and provide additional services that that small businesses would find useful. And we also do a lot of research. So one of the first things is for us was really like to understand where small businesses are and where they need support. We're also following up with the global research. This research that we just briefed you on was qualitative one. We are also doing the quant follow-up. We are interviewing a lot of businesses, again, in the same market, plus Spain, additional one, and globally. So just to see whether there are any kind of differences, and partnerships. So we have quite a lot of exciting partnerships in the pipeline that we will definitely let you know about.
Yeah, and definitely on the data side, we have developed a sustainability index to look at the buying behaviors of customers and understanding their propensity to live more sustainably. And so that's an index available across our consumer base, and that obviously has an impact on where they're shopping, how to attract them, as I was talking about before. And we have an existing partnership with a company called Ecolytic that tracks and understands the carbon footprint on purchases and payments already. And so that's a partnership we're continuing to grow and offer more and more opportunities in different segments that we offer as a company.
Yeah. And then maybe just a follow-up question. So engagement proposition slide, it's great. Will there be more details? So definitely you will be able to reach out to us, and we will share with you more details on the research. And also we could go more into details about different propositions, like exactly how we engaged with the interviewees, how we think about different components and so on. So definitely, please just reach out to us, and we will be able to provide more details.
And to add, I think the act of doing this research and more research, I think, is a testament to the early part of our journey on this as well. And so very welcome to feedback, other ideas of partnerships or other ways that we could be helpful. We have quite a few things in the wings that are waiting to be launched and going. And so do reach out, as Alenka said, and let us know where we could be most useful. Where are there friction points? What are you hearing from these small businesses? And how can we provide solutions that really help you with your clients?
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so basically, I think you you already very nicely positioned it, like in terms of next steps. So we basically reached out now to the end of this research brief. Thank you, everyone. You know, Matthias and Stephen, thank you, everyone who joined us virtually. In terms of next steps, please, you know, reach out to us if you have any questions or want to learn more. You can download, if you haven't already, the infographic, and you can also watch the recording. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the session has been recorded and will be available in the next month for you to watch again. Sure.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks
Thank you
very
so
much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.